I'm Pastor Joe, and it's time for 2 Minute Tuesdays together. Today we're going to wrap up our conversation on the leaders of the Reformation. Over the last several weeks, we have been talking about the Reformation, and specifically, we've been looking at some of the leaders of the Reformation. We looked at Martin Luther, Zwingli, King Henry VIII, Thomas Cranmer. Last week we looked at John Calvin. We've been from Germany and Switzerland to England. Well, today we're going to be looking at Scotland, the Reformation in Scotland, and specifically we're going to be looking at John Knox. So let's get 2 minutes on the clock. John Knox was born in Scotland in 1514, and he went on to study at the University of St. Andrews. John Knox was greatly influenced by the early reformers, and so he became a part of the early reform movement within Scotland. And this movement, though, got caught up in a lot of things, political and all that, and part of the group was responsible for the murder of Cardinal David Beaton. And because of that, John Knox and others were imprisoned, and when he was released, he was exiled to England. And while he was in England, though, he did work for the Church of England, eventually rising to the position of royal chaplain to King Edward VI, where he exerted a lot of influence, reformed influence over the Book of Common Prayer. But when Mary I ascended the throne, Knox was forced to resign his position and he had to leave England. He spent some time then in Geneva, where he met John Calvin, and he learned Reformed theology and he learned Presbyterian polity. But upon his return to Scotland, John Knox became one of the leaders, one of the primary leaders of the Reformation movement there, and he, along with a few others, wrote what became known as the Scots Confession, which led the Scottish Parliament to break with Catholicism. It abolished the authority of the Pope. It condemned all beliefs contrary to the Reformed theology, and it forbade the Mass from being celebrated in Scotland. John Knox and others in that movement were tasked with putting together the structure and the outline and everything to start the Church of Scotland. So you can see that John Knox had a great influence on the Reform movement in Scotland. John Knox died on November 24th, 1572. Well, look, I hope that this has been helpful. I hope you've enjoyed this review of the leaders of the Reformation movement. And this is just a taste of it because there's so much to cover, but I hope that you've enjoyed it. I do want to encourage you to like and share this video so that others can see it. If you haven't, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel.